Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Nikki, and today I'm going to walk through making this little Halloween card with you. So first off, we're going to need our paper. I'm using Arch's cold press, and it is the 9 by 12 inch, 23 by 31 centimeter size. So this was my last piece of paper, and I already messed up and measured it, so we're just going to pretend I didn't, alright? So go ahead and take your paper out. The sketch should fit on any normal size greeting card, so just pick the size that you would like to use, whatever size your paper will easily make. For me, since this is a 9 by 12 inch and I want to do a 4 by 6 inch card, I'm going to go ahead and measure 6 inches down and then 8 inches across so that I can fold it. So go ahead and get your ruling implement and your pencil and measure your card out. Oh, and a word of caution, I guess. Something to watch for. If you're using a pad of paper like I am, at least with Arches, it says it's a 9 by 12 inch, but it is not actually. It's actually a little bigger than that, and not evenly so. The sides are different lengths. So if you, so you don't just want to do it in half. Like you can kind of see here, it goes over the 9. When I go on this side, it's actually quite a bit over the 12. So you just want to make sure that you're not just dividing your paper in half because it won't be exactly right. Okay, so once you get the card measured out, we need to cut it, right? So if you have a cutting mat, go ahead and bust that out, or if you have a paper cutter, whatever you want to use, go ahead and cut your card out. I'm going to use a cutting mat since that's what's right next to me. And the extra one you can save for later. There we go. And then I always save the little cast off pieces to use to test the colors on. So don't throw that out. We'll end up using that. Okay, after the paper is cut out, the next step is to transfer the sketch. So I have the sketch linked to in the description for you. I made the sketch sized for a 4 by 6 card, but it will work for other card sizes. You just make sure that you print it at the size that you want it to be. So like when you download the sketch, you go to print it out, it'll give you the list of sizes for the image. Make sure that that is the size of the card that you would be using. So go ahead and go get that printed out and then meet me back here and we'll get going on the transfer. Okay, so if you've got your sketch ready, we need to get it onto the watercolor paper. I used to use a sunny window for that for years. I would just tape it up with painter's tape like here, and that's an easy one. A little hard on the neck, but it works. If you have a light table, that would work as well. That's what I'm going to be using. I have a little portable light table here. And so what I want to do is put my card on here, and I'm just going to throw a little tape with some cat hair. Whoops. And then I'm going to take my, just kidding, let's do it actually in the right order, right? Okay, put the sketch down. I'll turn it on. I'm going to go ahead and turn this light off. And if it helps to make a midline on your card to make sure that you have it centered, you can also do that right now. So for me, that would be right about here, and I can see that my sketch is a little too close to that edge. So then I'm going to scoop my paper a little bit. A little bit more. Yeah, okay. We'll adjust that one. There we go. And so then I'm going to go ahead and tape those down so that they don't move around on me while I draw. If you've never transferred a sketch before, all you're doing is pretty much just tracing your image, and you want to be mindful of not pressing too hard. You want to have a really light hand while you draw it. And turning off all the lights, closing the windows. Like, I left my window open, so this is a little hard to see. But if you close your windows and everything like that, it makes it a lot easier on your eyes. If you wear nail polish like I do, just be mindful that you don't accidentally smear it on the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this part for you, and we can meet back up after your sketch is transferred. Alright, this looks done. To check it, I want to lift up a little, check the sketch, make sure that I got all the little pieces, and it looks like I did. So I'm going to turn that off and turn my light back on. Erase my little or make a smudge on my midline. So normally my eraser, I have one just for transferring that isn't all dirty. I couldn't find it, so I used this one. Yeah, if you're, make sure your eraser is not covered in junk. If it is, clean it first. You can clean it by just, you know, rubbing it on paper until it gets all of the graphite off of it. Which I should have done, because especially on the cold press, once it's on there, it's kind of stuck. Anyway. Alright. So we don't need the sketch anymore after that. So I'm going to go ahead and put my table away. Oh, a side note here, if you are wanting to give this to somebody as a gift, you might want to not have it directly on your tabletop because it could get smudged. You might want to paint with it on a piece of scrap paper or a board, something like that, that will kind of protect it. If you want to add the outlines, like I'm going to do, you want to make sure that you have a waterproof pen of some sort, like the pigment liner here or a micron pen, something that when you paint over the top of it, it's not going to smear everywhere. If you do not have a waterproof one, you could try to do it afterwards. I find that sometimes they have a hard time writing on top of the watercolor though, just a heads up. And you would have to make sure it was totally dry, or the paint was completely dry before you ink over it. I mean, that's true with a waterproof pen too. If you're trying to ink on cold press paper like I am, the bumpiness of the paper will sometimes make the pen jump around. So just try to go slowly, and it might still jump around a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, that's part of the handmade aspect of it, right? Is the little imperfections. Alright, if you do want to ink, I am using a 0.2 size. You can use whatever size you want. And I'm just going to trace my sketch lines, basically. I'll go ahead and skip ahead again, and we can meet back up. Alright, and if you have a cleaner eraser than me, you can go through and erase the sketch lines if you want. On the cold press, I have noticed that that does lift off some of the ink, so you might want to have to touch it up with the pen when you're done if you do that. I'm just going to leave mine because, you know, I'll just make it all look like that if I don't. Okay, and so next, we are going to get started on the painting. So I have my water here. I have 2 containers of water. You want one that you keep clean. This is my little clean water. And one that we're going to be rinsing brushes in. I have my little palette here, and I tend to just set my water on top of my palette because I don't need the whole thing anyway. That's just a bunch of paint from other projects. For the colors, you can use whatever colors you want. Of course, I mean, it's your card. You can make the cat plaid or polka dot. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? If you want to do the same ones that I have, I'm going to be mixing my own black. And my favorite mix for that is a lemon yellow, phthalo blue, and then cadmium red deep. I don't have much lemon left, so I might have to add in some cadmium yellow pale hue. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. And if you have a black watercolor and you don't want to mix your own, that's fine too. So whichever colors you want to pick, go ahead and get them out. I have the little test strip handy. Okay, and for brushes, I'm going to be using this Grumbacher Golden Edge size 12. It's a round. And I'll be using that for the bigger spaces. And then for the details, I have this little Transin art brush, size 3. And that looks like that's also a round. You can use any brushes that you want. I find that the round will work the best for this. So in watercolor, we work light to dark. So I'm going to start with the palest part of the picture, which is going to be these little inside bits of the pumpkin eye. I'm not going to paint that little highlight on his eye. We're going to leave that white. So carefully go around that part. That's really going to be stuck. Oh, never mind. All right, so a lemon yellow, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of cad red. And then a tiny bit, maybe, tiny bit of phthalo blue. Tiny bit of phthalo blue. It is very, very strong. For my little water bottle here. So I want to start with just the yellow, and I want to see what color, what shade that is. So that's really pale. That's a little too pale. That's a lot better, and I think I want to warm it up just a tiny bit. So I'm going to take just a little bit of the cadmium red, maybe a little more. There we go. I think that's pretty good. So now I'm going to start by painting these guys. And I make lots of short strokes because my hands shake a lot. If yours do not, and you can do it in a continuous stroke, that works too. Okay, and then I'm going to get a little bit more red. I want to try to mix the color for the inside of the pumpkin here. And it doesn't have to exactly match, but as close as I can get it. Probably that's pretty close. I might have to do a couple layers. Okay, so I'm going to wait just a minute while the yellow dries more so that I don't mess it up and make it bleed into it. Okay, so let's come in and put the orange in the background of the pumpkin there. Well, the inside of the pumpkin. That is not the inside of the pumpkin, that's the cat. So, he's got a little bit of orange now. Okay, let's try that again. So yeah, I probably will end up putting another layer on at least the mouth part, but I want to let it dry first before I do that. Okay, I think that's good enough to add a little bit more on here. Oh, nope, it's not. Do you see how it lifted some of that? Okay, so I'm just going to stop being impatient. Well, I had put too much paint, so it's taking a while to dry. So while that dries, I'm going to go ahead and try to mix up the orange that I want to do for the outside. There we go. I'm looking for a more reddish orange. So I think I like that one better. Okay, so I'm going to move up to my big brush. So I'm going to get it damp. And I'm just going to follow the lines. It's the same thing. Since it's kind of a big area, you want to move a little quickly, but it's not too serious. Whoops. And I tend to leave a puddle when I leave off somewhere. I mean, I didn't right here. Whoops. I try to leave a puddle so that it doesn't make that hard edge on the side when it starts to dry. It gives me more time to come back around the other side. Whoops. Whoops again. Lots of whoopses. But it will start to dry if I take too long. I tend to be a really slow painter, and so my paint dries on me a lot. Alright, and then I'm going to add more here. Add more here. Okay, so I had to deal with something there, so it did leave the hard edges like I was telling you about, but that's okay. This pumpkin will just have character. Oh man. So I'm going to go back and just kind of go over everything I did to try to blend those hard edges in a little bit. But a little bit quicker than last time. I'm not being as precise as I was earlier. Just trying to blend out some of that hard edge, but I don't think it's really going to. That's okay. All right, moving on. Okay, so I'm going to use the last of my paint. Actually, I have to bring this a little closer for you so you can actually see it. And I want to paint the B and the second O, you know, that's not the cat, the same orange. I am almost out of paint though, so I may have to remix some more. Whoopsies. might have enough. Okay, I think I'll stop messing with that. So that's going to take a little while to dry. I'm going to go ahead and start mixing the black, and I'm going to use my small brush again for that. So I'm going to start with just what I have right here, just this yellow, orange, whatever color that is. And okay, I lied. I'm going to add a little more. Okay, that was too much. That's okay though. This is how I end up with all this other paint on my palette. I always end up mixing too much. So to mix shades of black, I like to have it pretty saturated. So like how over here you can see the paper through it, like it's a really pale yellow. This is the yellow I'm working with now. It's a lot more vibrant, it's a lot more saturated. When I make it more saturated, it makes the black darker. And so I want a fairly dark black, so that's what I'm going to try to do here. And I'm bringing in red. I'm going to start by making it an orange. And again, I want it to be vibrant, so I'm going to bring in as much of that as I can. May add more. Mixing your own blacks, I think I'm going to be doing a video on that actually. It's a whole lot of trial and error. I mean, mixing your own colors of any kind is, but in order to get like a variety of shades of black, it's definitely can be a lot of trial and error. Yeah, I'm gonna need more intense color here. So I'm gonna add some more red. Again, way too much. Okay, so you can see how this now, actually, that's really close to what I wanted. That's actually really close. Because I was going for kind of a bluish black. Yeah, okay, I think I'm good with that. If you need to keep adding little bits of red, I mean, not a dump of red like I just did, but little bits of red, little bits of phthalo, back and forth, little bit of yellow. The general rule is that if you mix some red and some blue, you get purple, and the opposite of purple is yellow. And so if you mix a little bit of yellow in there, it will actually darken the purple to become almost a black. And you can do the same thing by mixing the red and yellow to make an orange, and then sorry, I'm doing that off camera. Mix the red and yellow to make an orange, and then add some blue in to darken that down to a black. It works either way. And greens to red. You can make a green first and mix the red in, right? I mean, it's pretty much any opposite like that. Opposite colors on the color wheel will give you a neutral, and a lot of times will give you a black. And so if I were to lighten this like with some water, it gets a really nice gray, which is I think what I'm going to use for the inside of the kitty's ears. So I think I'm going to actually start with that. There we go. And I'll let that dry while I work on So the pumpkin is still damp. Not too damp on the edges. I could probably go ahead and paint his butt. So let's do that. Paint some kitty booty. So I'm going to turn this upside down so that it's easier to paint the edge along the pumpkin there. And I'm going to take my color here. And I'm actually going to add some water to my brush because that paint is a little bit thick. I want it to flow a little bit more than that. And it did lighten it up, but that's okay because I can let it dry and do another layer if I want to. It's no big deal. There we go. Flip him back over. And I'm going to do the part that's in the mouth and then the part against the eye because I want to let that ear dry a little bit more. And you want to be careful you don't land your hand in the part that's still wet. I do that all the time. There we go. I'm thinking I can probably do his ear now. Sorry, I know it's a lot of turning the paper around. Okay. And so yeah, I think I do want to put another layer on the black here. Excuse me, I just need to check. I think it's dry enough. but I kind of ran out. You can see there's not a whole lot there left. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more phthalo and try to mix a little bit more of that. And if it's not totally exact, I'm okay with that. So I've mixed, see, I can't even tell, it's so dark. Let's see. Oh, it's still really blue. So that's a little too blue. I want to add some yellow into that. And a little more red. Maybe a lot more red. And mix it with the yellow down here. See? Yeah, that's a little better. How about light? Yeah, that's more the color that I wanted. Alright. So I'm going to put a little bit of water in that bit that I just made. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and paint over his booty again. And of course my colors are just a guideline here. Alright, let's see. Oh, I almost used the wrong one again. I'm going to go back over the rest of them too because I like that kind of darker blue that I got that second time. Oops, going outside the lines. And then on this one, I want to also color in his pupil. There we go. There we go. Okay, so next, very carefully, I'm going to take some of this gold that I had kind of mixed over here on the side, and I'm going to come in here and put it not over the whole area, just on the inside, and making sure not to let any of it run into the black, because that's still wet and it would make a mess. Just a little bit of it. You can't hardly see it, but I'll come back and add more when the black is dry. So I'm going to take some of this red, mix it over here with whatever that was, and then I'm going to go back to my orange. And what I like to do when I start layering colors is to layer it on what I had. See, so that's actually going to be kind of a burgundy, which is not what I wanted. If I put some water on it, it's still a little too burgundy. I was just trying to go for a little more red. So I'm actually not going to use that. I'm going to come in here and try to take some of this red and add it. It looks like it's still going to be pretty burgundy. Adding some water here. Yeah. Okay, so that means it makes such a mess. So that means I want to get just a tiny bit more red here. Tiny, not tiny. I'm going to have a lot of red paintings to do at this rate. I use up all this paint. Alright, so I'm going to do this and take a tiny bit of yellow, hopefully tiny bit of yellow. I've like been painting for years and I still have not managed to only squeeze out of a tube what I need to use. The way I remedy that eventually is to go through and make paintings that are monochromatic or like just two colors with whatever's left in my palette so that I don't waste all that paint. Let's see. So that is a little bit more what I was going for. Just make it a little bit more vibrant. There we go. Okay, much better. So I'm going to go over the letters again, the B and the O again, while we wait for that black to dry. But not exactly all the way. I'm kind of just fudging it. Do you see that? How it's just kind of not covering the whole letter? That's just to see if it gives it some more interest when it dries. You have little variations in shade. So I want to add some variation onto the pumpkin, and here's where I can use some of this burgundy. I'm going to come through and make the pumpkin feel a little bit more 3D. That, though, needs some more water. But not too much, or it'll make it bloom a lot on the pumpkin, which is not really what I want. You can soften the edges with water and then lifting, but it might lift the paint under it. Cad Red is really, really bad about lifting, or rather, it lifts pretty well, usually when you don't want it to. So since that's what makes up the base of our orange, I don't want to put too much water or it will just lift it. We'll see. You see it's trying to do it right there. Stubborn. And so also for the same reason, you don't want to scrub the paint, or it will do that as well. Paint the stroke and lift off. Don't go back and forth. And how I put some here and it had started to lift, I need to wait for it to dry there. So I'll go somewhere else. Okay, and I think the black is dry enough now to do some of that inside again. And I'm going to try to mix that kind of inside pumpkin tone that I had earlier. That's not terrible. Not great. Try a little more red. That's actually closer to how I wanted it, or how I had it in the color study. Okay, so we'll go with that. And then I want to put a little bit more on the pumpkin's face once that dries. So we're going to take a break and come back till when that's dry all the way. If you are in a hurry, you can use a hairdryer. Make sure you keep it about that far above your painting and make sure you constantly move it so you don't just hold it on one spot or it can start to mess up your paper. But I am not going to use my hairdryer, so I'll be back. Short break time, go get a snack. Okay, so now that's all dry. Now I want to go ahead and mix the green for the eyes. So for this one, since I need so little, I'm just gonna dip into the thing here. Oh. So let's test out my color here. That's really close, actually. All right. So I want to have it darker on the edges and then fade and around the pupil, and then fade right over here to a little bit lighter. I'll get kind of like that. All right, now I want to add a little bit more to the pumpkin. And so I'm going to mix up some of this yellow with a little bit of red. And again, I'm not covering everything. I just want to add a little bit of extra depth to it. Then I'm going to take this, and again, do just a little bit on the inside here. And I'm adding water to kind of fade it out a little bit. I don't want it to be quite that bright. That's probably good. Maybe a little bit more up here. Yeah. Oh, see it lifted right there? Okay, I'm just gonna leave it alone then. So I want to mix just a little bit more orange that's kind of a yellow orange. And I'm thinking for the letters. But let's see if that works. I don't want to lift it, so. There we go, it's a little bit better there. And for this one, I just want to put some yellow, some yellow highlights in. And some of the ridges of the pumpkin here. There we go, that's probably good. And then when that dries a little bit, I want to add just a little bit more shadows, just a tiny bit, and then I think it'll be done. And so for these, I'm going to pull some of this green into it, so it's a little bit more brown. Maybe. You can see that it's a little bit more brown. That's actually not quite dark enough, though. A little more in. There we go. That's better. And so I'm just going around the lines again. And then a little bit on the sides. I'm just trying to make the front a little bit more dark compared to the inside of the pumpkin. I think I made the inside just a little bit darker than I meant to. And so the front is not standing out as much as I had meant. I'm just trying to fix that a little bit. It's hard to know when to be done sometimes. The only other thing that we have to do is to fold it. And so normally you wait till this is totally dry. I'm going to be a little bit of a slacker right here so that you don't have to have another snack break. So what I do is I fold where it's very loose, right here, not a tight fold. I just bring the open edges together, like so. This is why you want it to be dry first, because you might have to touch the middle of the card. You just try to line them up and fold. And the reason, I know you know how to fold paper, right? The reason I'm showing you is because when it's the watercolor paper, it can get a little too thick to be able to really fold well. And so if you have something like this plastic bone folder, or really, I've done it before with a pen, as long as it's very clean, unlike my bone folder, which is covered in glue. And if you're using one of these, you want to start from the middle, and then just crease, and then go the other way. Crease, and I messed up, and see, that's why it's supposed to be clean. It's not my grubby glue dirt covered thing. And then you don't want to squish too hard or it can tear like it did right here. So if you're actually doing yours carefully, that should help it fold. And then let me raise this up a little. There's your little Halloween card. Hopefully a little less messy than mine. Yeah, I hope you had fun today. If you like more videos like this, you can go ahead and subscribe. And if you would like monthly behind the scenes art studio tales, where I kind of share my art journey, things I'm learning, things I'm working on, stuff like that, then the link to my newsletter is in the description for you. Until next time.